Alright, so I went to GROK 3 to ask it a simple question, or fairly simple. How do Joseph Atwill's Caesar's Messiah, Cliff Carrington's Flavian hypothesis, and Robert Eisenman's James the Brother of Jesus and New Testament Code support one another's theses? Joseph Atwill in GROK 3 responds, Joseph Atwill's Caesar's Messiah, Cliff Carrington's work on the Flavian hypothesis, and Robert Eisenman's James the Brother of Jesus and the New Testament Code each present unconventional perspectives on the origins of Christianity, challenging traditional narratives about its development. While these scholars approach the subject from different angles, their works intersect in ways that can be seen as mutually supportive, particularly in their skepticism toward the historical reliability of the New Testament and their emphasis on Roman influence or alternative Jewish contexts in shaping early Christian texts and traditions. Below, I'll explore how these theses align and reinforce one another, focusing on shared themes and complementary insights. Atwill's Caesar's Messiah argues that the New Testament Gospels were crafted by Roman elites, specifically the Flavian dynasty, Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian, with the assistance of figures like Flavius Josephus, to create a pacifist religion that would subdue Jewish resistance after the First Jewish-Roman War from 67 to 70 CE. He points to parallels between Josephus's Wars of the Jews and the Gospels, suggesting that these texts were designed to be read together, revealing a satirical subtext that portrays Jesus as a fictional construct modeled on Titus Flavius. Atwill's thesis hinges on the idea that Christianity was a Roman propaganda tool, not a grassroots Jewish movement. Cliff Carrington's work, often associated with the broader Flavian hypothesis, complements Atwill's ideas by similarly questioning the relationship between Josephus's writings and the New Testament. Carrington explores suspicious overlaps between the historical accounts in Wars of the Jews and gospel narratives, suggesting that these parallels indicate a coordinated effort rather than mere coincidence. While Carrington's specific arguments are less widely published or detailed in mainstream sources compared to Atwill's, his focus on the interdependence of these texts aligns with Atwill's claim that the Gospels and Josephus's histories share a deliberate, constructed relationship. Both scholars see this as evidence of Roman manipulation, though Carrington's scope may not extend as far as Atwill's assertion of a fully invented Jesus. Robert Eisenman's James the Brother of Jesus and the New Testament Code take a different tack, focusing on the historical figure of James, the brother of Jesus, and the Jewish context of early Christianity. Eisenman argues that James led a Torah-observant anti-Roman movement that was sidelined by a later Roman-friendly Pauline Christianity. He draws heavily on the Dead Sea Scrolls, portraying the Qumran community as revolutionary zealots akin to James's group, and identifies Paul as a Herodian collaborator who distorted Jesus' original message. In the New Testament Code, Eisenman delves into textual analysis, uncovering hidden meanings and connection between the scrolls, that is the Dead Sea Scrolls, Josephus, and the New Testament that suggest a cover-up of this earlier, more radical Jewish Christianity. Just grabbing a cough drop here. Where these theses support one another is in their shared distrust of the New Testament as a straightforward historical document, and their emphasis on external influences, Roman or otherwise, in shaping its context. Atwill and Carrington directly implicate the Flavians and Josephus in crafting the Gospels, while Eisenman sees Roman-aligned figures like Paul reshaping an authentic Jewish movement into something more palatable to imperial interests. Atwill's idea of a Roman-orchestrated Christianity dovetails with Eisenman's view of Paul as a Herodian agent, suggesting a broader Roman strategy to co-opt or suppress Jewish resistance. Carrington's focus on textual parallels reinforces both Atwill's and Eisenman's reliance on Josephus as a key to unlocking hidden agendas, whether satirical in the case of Atwill or historical in the case of Eisenman. A specific point of convergence is their treatment of Josephus. Atwill uses Josephus's works to reveal a Flavian signature in the Gospels. Carrington sees them as suspiciously intertwined with the New Testament, and Eisenman interprets Josephus as a Romanized Jew whose accounts obscure the revolutionary nature of figures like James. This shared skepticism about Josephus's neutrality strengthens their collective argument that the excuse me. This shared skepticism about Josephus's neutrality strengthens their collective argument that the historical record has been manipulated to serve Roman ends. For instance, Eisenman's collaboration with Atwill on a paper about the Dead Sea Scrolls dating underscores their mutual interest in reevaluating primary sources. And Eisenman's endorsement of Caesar's Messiah, when he says, if what Joseph Atwill is saying is only partially true, we are looking into the abyss, suggests he sees value in Atwill's radical rethinking, even if he doesn't fully adopt it. Their views also align in challenging the traditional portrayal of Jesus. Atwill denies his historicity outright, positing him as a Flavian invention. Eisenman, while accepting a historical Jesus, reimagines him as a militant figure whose legacy was rewritten by Paul and others, potentially aligning with Atwill's notion of a fabricated narrative, albeit with different architects. Carrington's work, though less explicit on Jesus' existence, supports the idea of a constructed gospel story by highlighting its reliance on Roman-influenced texts. Together they suggest that the Jesus of the New Testament is, at minimum, a heavily edited figure shaped by forces far removed from a simple Jewish preacher. Critically, however, their theses don't fully cohere. Atwill's claim of a top-down Roman conspiracy clashes with Eisenman's emphasis on an organic Jewish movement that was later co-opted. If the Flavians invented Christianity whole cloth, as Atwill argues, there's little room for Eisenman's pre-existing James-led community. Maybe unless that James-led community did not believe that Jesus was really the Messiah, and it was just a group within normative Judaism, maybe. Carrington's narrower focus on textual parallels avoids such grand historical claims, making it a bridge between the two, but because James, the name James is not a very good transliteration of the name in Greek, which is like Yaakobos or something. In other words, Jacob. It might be, I don't know, because of the King James Version that we refer to him as James. Carrington's narrower focus on textual parallels avoids such grand historical claims, making it a bridge between the two, but lacking the depth to reconcile them fully. Still, their mutual rejection of the establishment narrative, whether through Roman authorship, textual subterfuge, or suppression of Jewish roots, creates a synergy that amplifies their individual critiques. In summary, Atwill, Carrington, and Eisenman support each other by converging on the idea that the New Testament is a product of manipulation, with Roman influence via the Flavians or Paul, and Josephus's writings as critical pieces of evidence. Their works collectively challenge the notion of Christianity as a purely Jewish grassroots phenomenon, proposing instead that it was shaped, whether invented, redirected, or reframed, by powers with political motives. While their conclusions differ in scope and mechanism, their shared reliance on alternative readings of key texts and their skepticism toward traditional history create a reinforcing web of ideas that invites deeper scrutiny of Christian origins. Let me see. I'm going to ask it to list the possible motives that the Roman Flavian emperors might have had for inventing Christianity. Jeez, 10 different possible motives for the Roman Flavians to invent Christianity. The idea that the Roman Flavian emperors, Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian, might have invented Christianity, as proposed by scholars like Joseph Atwill and Caesar's Messiah, rests on the notion that they crafted the religion as a strategic tool to serve political, social, and military objectives. Below is a list of possible motives they might have had, based on this hypothesis and the historical context of their rule following the First Jewish-Roman War, 66 to 70 CE. 1. Pacifying Jewish resistance. The Flavians came to power after suppressing a major Jewish revolt that threatened Roman control in Judea. Now that Jewish revolt didn't come out of a vacuum. Flavius Josephus makes it clear that the Romans provoked the Jews to war. It wasn't like Jews were just sitting around and decided they just wanted to revolt. The Romans had given them plenty of reasons for doing so. A religion promoting a peaceful, submissive Messiah, unlike the militant messianic expectations of many Jews, could undermine further rebellion, redirecting Jewish zeal into a doctrine of turning the other cheek and rendering under Caesar. 2. Consolidating imperial power might have been another one of their motives. By creating a narrative that positioned a Flavian-modeled figure, for example Titus as a Christ-like savior, as divinely ordained, the emperors could legitimize their rule. Linking their victories, such as Titus's destruction of the Jerusalem temple in 70 CE, to a new religious framework might elevate their status from military leaders to agents of a cosmic plan. Interesting. That would be why Jesus/Titus is the temple in the so-called New Testament, because he was accused of impiety in destroying the temple in Jerusalem, which was against Roman law, apparently. Like any religious edifice in the Roman Empire was supposed to be preserved as part of that native culture. But he destroyed the Jewish temple. So then he becomes the temple as kind of a consolation for having destroyed it. 3. Weakening Jewish cultural identity. Judaism's strict monotheism and resistance to Roman assimilation posed a challenge to imperial unity. A new religion that repurposed Jewish scriptures, blended them with Hellenistic elements, and aligned with Roman interests could dilute Jewish cohesion. In other words, the Roman divide and conquer strategy, because if they were trying to divide and conquer them, or just divide them, then they're trying to break up Jewish cohesion. So this could dilute Jewish cohesion, encouraging loyalty to Rome over traditional Jewish law and leadership. Fourth motive, propaganda against messianic movements. The Jewish war was fueled by messianic fervor, or maybe it was fueled by Roman provocations to war. And then that led to a messianic fervor, with figures claiming divine roles against Rome. A fabricated Christianity with a passive crucified Messiah could satirize and discredit these claims, portraying resistance as futile and obedience as divinely sanctioned, thus neutralizing future messianic threats. But it didn't, because you had the Bar Kokhba revolt, I think, or was it around 135 CE? So it didn't suppress Jewish messianic hopes. Economic, and part of that is because Christianity as a religion was not as popular with the Jewish people as Christianity likes to pretend. Economic control and stability. Judea's unrest disrupted trade and taxation in a key region. A religion that discouraged upheaval and promoted social order could stabilize the province, ensuring continued revenue and resource extraction for the empire without the constant need for military intervention. Well, Judea's unrest was because of Roman provocations of the Jews to war. Unifying a diverse empire, another motive. The Flavian dynasty ruled a sprawling multi-ethnic empire with competing religious cults. A universalist religion centered on a single controllable figure might foster cohesion across provinces, providing a shared ideology that transcended local traditions while aligning with Roman governance. 7. Personal deification and legacy. Roman emperors often sought divine status to secure their legacy, crafting a religion where Flavian achievements, for example Titus's campaign, paralleled the acts of a savior figure, crafting a religion where Flavian achievements paralleled the acts of a savior figure could pave the way for their own worship, embedding their dynasty in a lasting spiritual narrative. Which, if Jesus is a literary disguise for Titus, or even if Titus may have borne the name Jesus or Yeshua as a quasi or pseudo convert to Judaism, either way doesn't matter, but except that the Jesus of the New Testament, so-called, is backdated to the 30s CE. He's not a contemporary of Titus Flavius. 8. Countering rival elites. The Flavians, as a relatively new dynasty after the chaos of the Year of the Four Emperors, 69 CE, faced challenges from aristocratic factions in Rome. A state-sponsored religion could shift cultural power toward the emperors, sidelining rival priesthoods or senators by giving the Flavians a monopoly on a new moral and spiritual authority. And I mean, the Flavians, they had a pretty good run. It was about the last 30 years of the first century. Psychological warfare, by embedding subtle mockery or coded references, for example parallels between gospel events and Flavian military triumphs, into a text meant for Jewish consumption, the Flavians could assert dominance through humiliation, as Atwill suggests with his typological reading of Josephus alongside the Gospels. 10. Long-term social engineering. Beyond immediate control, inventing Christianity could serve as a generational strategy to reshape societal values. A religion emphasizing humility, obedience, and forgiveness might produce a more docile populace over time, reducing the empire's reliance on force to maintain order. These motives, while speculative and tied to the Flavian hypothesis, draw from the historical realities of the period, the need to secure a war-torn empire, manage a restive Jewish population, and solidify a new dynasty's grip on power. Critics of this view argue there's little direct evidence for such a grand conspiracy. It's really not that grand. When the Roman Flavians were the emperors and had the power to both invent things and distribute them throughout the empire, that's not a big conspiracy. Critics of this view argue, all you needed were ignorant, uneducated people to buy into it. Critics of this view argue there's little direct evidence for such a grand conspiracy, and the organic growth of Christianity from Jewish roots better fits historical data. Nonetheless, these possibilities illustrate how the Flavians might have seen strategic value in crafting a religion to align with their imperial goals. Let's see, these possibilities illustrate how the Flavians might have seen strategic value in crafting a religion to align with their imperial goals. And as far as organic growth of Christianity from Jewish roots better fits historical data, except the worship of a man as God is totally counter and contrary to Judaism. So, yeah, if that's an outgrowth, it's like a tumor, a malignant tumor as an outgrowth on an otherwise healthy human body. That's not any kind of, certainly, evolution in religious thought. It's a perversion of it. So, anyway, I wanted to cover that question with GROK 3 about how these three authors might support one another's thesis, because one thing AI is good at is synthesizing, or is it syncretizing? Not sure which of those words, if either of them are appropriate to express what I'm getting at. But one thing AI is good at is like taking a bunch of information and compiling it, collating it, comparing it, and spitting out output like you see here, which it provided this within 10 seconds. There was a bit of a pause. That might have been network lag, where it kind of paused in one of the paragraphs and then it spit out the rest. And I'm not sure, or I don't know, how that output is put out. Whether it formulates the whole thing and then it's just a matter of transmitting it, or whether it's actually thinking about it as it's spitting it out, which would be possibly even more amazing. Anyway, so wanted to share that.